Hi, I'm Gary McDonald and welcome to my new little video, and also welcome to my shed. Alright, so the purposes of this video is to explain how I got the finish on this drum kit that I've got behind me. I did this as a little bit of an experimental project, and I threw a few photos up on social media, and it proved to be popular. So people wanted to know how I did it and what the process was. So here's a little video to help explain it. I've made a little PDF explaining all the steps, but this video is just to go along with it, just to help out and to give some extra background information. So let's get into it. Alright, so I'll give you a bit of background information first. So this is a second-hand Yamaha YD series drum kit that I bought second-hand off Facebook Marketplace. I wanted a little rehearsal drum kit for the band that I'm in, and I already have a drum kit set up in that rehearsal space, but I wanted something a little different, something a little smaller. So the drum kit that's there, the tom sizes are 12, 13, 16, and the bass drum is 22 inches. This is a fusion setup, so this is 10, 12, 14 with a 20-inch bass drum. Something a bit different for me. I'm not used to using those sizes, so again, a bit of an experiment. Anyway, I bought the drum kit second-hand, and it had been sitting in a shed for a long period of time. The finish was faded quite badly, and the plastic wrapping on it had cracked quite badly as well. So I brought it home and thought I might have a go at refinishing it. Now, to be honest, I'm not a woodworker, I'm not a drum shell manufacturer, I'm not a professional painter of any sort, so everything that I'm about to explain here was a complete experiment on my behalf. I really had no idea what I was doing, I just lucked out and it worked well. So there's a bit of a disclaimer for you. So before you go rushing off trying to replicate what I've done here, do some experimentation first, okay? Do some stuff on some cardboard or plyboard or some MDF, okay? Don't just go sanding back your old drum kit and trying to paint it in glitter because, well, Gary said it worked. That would be a silly thing to do. My other little piece of advice is don't go doing this to a professional level drum set. This is an entry level or a student level drum set. I wouldn't go doing this sort of work to, say, a new Pearl reference series or something like that, just because you want to see what it looks like, okay, in a glitter finish. That would be silly. So yeah, stick to doing it with very basic level drum kits. Yeah, so that gives you a little bit of background there. The other thing that you need to know is that this finish does not come out on video or in photos very well. It's what's referred to as holographic glitter, and it's very reflective of the light that's around it, and it's very hard to capture with a camera or a video. As I look around and move around, you get different colors coming off the glitter. So at the moment I can see light blues, dark blues, purples, greens, yellows, all mixed in, and it all changes depending on how you're looking at it. So at the moment on camera, you're probably just seeing blue. Alright, it's probably not that impressive. So do some research into holographic glitter before you go doing this project. It might not be what you expect it to be. In my case, it was actually much better than I expected it to be. So this glitter is not the typical craft glitter that you get, or that you might picture like a 10-year-old school art project to have. This is more of an industrial type glitter, used for things like nail polish, resin art, that sort of thing. And I had no idea this stuff existed before I actually started doing this. So, alright, that gives you a little bit of a background behind what's going on here. Alright, so let's get on to the next bit. Alright, so how did I come to put holographic glitter on a drum set? So, as I said, the drum kit was second-hand, and I took the plastic wrap off it that was very, very faded, and I was intending to just paint it. I wasn't really worried about what it looked like, but my partner, who is a bit, who's into craft, art, that sort of stuff, she had some samples of some holographic glitter from a place that sells it in Melbourne, I believe, called Harry and Wilma. They've got a website, you can look it up, and they sell all sorts of things like resin, art, materials, and as part of a little package that my partner bought, they sent her a sample of some holographic glitter, and it just happened to be Ocean Crush finish, which is what I put on this. And it came in 2 little sample bags like this. So this one here is Garden of Eden green, and this one here is denim blue, and it's a little bit more purple than blue. So anyway, I experimented with this on a couple of pieces of wood and thought, why not? Let's give it a shot. What harm can it do? I can always sand it off. And I did this time here, and it came up amazingly well. I was very, very surprised at how well the finish turned out. So I thought, well, I guess I've got to try and replicate it on the rest of the drum set. So I did some more experimenting, and yeah, it worked out. Now, I can't guarantee that you're going to have the same finish as this or the same quality finish as this if you try it yourself. So don't assume that, oh, well, I'm just going to follow the instructions of what Gary said and I'll end up with the same sort of quality. I can't guarantee that. I've only done it once, and I was kind of making it up as I went. So yeah, good luck if you try and do it, but I can't guarantee that it's going to work for you. So do some critical thinking, some experiments, some trials and stuff before you decide to go and do it on a drum set of your own. All right, so I'll walk you through the basic process of what I did, the tools I used, etc., etc. All this is in the PDF, but I'll give a brief rundown on it just to help augment the PDF. So I'll link the PDF somewhere around, I don't know where. You'll find it, hopefully. And also the links to where I got the materials. All right, so let's get into that bit now. Okay, so the first thing I'll get into is the tools. All right, so here in Australia, because I'm Australian, we call this a shifter. Okay, it's a shifting spanner. You might call it an adjustable wrench or something. Okay, you've got the little turnable part and it opens and closes. One of those, use that a bit. I used a Phillips head screwdriver, various screwdrivers you'll need. You might need a flathead, this one's a Phillips head. I use that one quite a bit. What we call in Australia a Stanley knife, because it's brought out by the company Stanley. It's a tradie knife, okay, plumbers, builders, okay, they all use it. I also used a little scalpel, okay, that I borrowed off my partner. She does craft, so I just borrowed a little craft scalpel. Some masking tape, okay. Be careful when you buy masking tape, it comes in different strengths. You want something that's going to be able to be peeled off. So I went for some good quality Painters masking tape by Scotch. But yeah, do a little bit of research into masking tape. There's a lot of different sorts depending on what you're going to use it for, and that sort of thing. A drumstick for stirring paint. As you can see, there's still paint on it. Various containers. So this is an old fondant container that my partner had because she does cake decorating, so she lent me one of those. An old Gippsland dairy yogurt container that I did some mixing in. Little container, I think that comes off an old spray can or something, I don't know, I just found it in the shed. This is an old coffee jar lid on a paddle pop stick. I'll explain how I used this in a few minutes. Another coffee jar container that I just put some paint in and used a brush. What else? A variety of drum keys. Okay, so there's a regular sort of drum key and there's a ratchet type that I've got in the shed. A tap and die part. Okay, I use these for cleaning the threads on the tension lugs when I want to clean them up if there's a little bit of rust or grit in the thread. Let's see, sandpaper. I used 400 or P400, sort of wet and dry, and also some P120, okay, grit sandpaper. I'll explain how I use that in a minute. Several paintbrushes here. Okay, one that's about 1 inch wide, one that's about half an inch wide, one that's about 5 mil wide. I'm using metric and imperial here, and one that's about 1 centimeter wide. So various paintbrushes, and obviously a jar. In fact, I think that is the lid off that jar. Not that matters. Another yogurt container, various other little odds and fast food containers for putting bolts and screws and all that sort of stuff in. Some little fruit containers that you get like cherry tomatoes and that sort of stuff in. All useful for putting little bits and pieces in. Now, a pair of scissors, okay, so they come in handy obviously for cutting up newspaper. I bought several newspapers for masking off and things like that. I'll explain that in a minute. Probably one of the most important tools that you may not have that I did use is a heat gun. Now, a heat gun is like a hair dryer on steroids. Builders use it for stripping paint or wallpaper, things like that. This is a pretty new one. It's an Ozito model. It's pretty cheap. It's like $30 Australian. Got a heat setting there, and I used this for removing the plastic wrap and covers off the actual old drums. I'll explain that in a minute as well. Alright, some wood putty. So this is Cabot's wood tone putty. It's a small little container of it. I only used a very small amount of it just to plug a couple of scratches and a couple of little split bits of wood in the shell of that tom there. So when I took the cover off, there was a little split. I just filled it with putty and fixed that up, sanded it off. Alright, then we get into the important stuff. Alright, I'll start with this. This is Clubhouse glitter paint. Alright, now I bought this from a place in Australia called Spotlight, which is like they sell fabrics and craft supplies. It's a pretty big store. If you're in Australia, you'll understand what I mean. But if you're overseas, I don't know what the equivalent would be. So this is a particular type of paint. It's very, very cheap. It's actually for kids. It's basically a clear paint with glitter infused into it. The sort of thing that you might make Christmas cards out of, or birthday cards or something like that. Kids' craft projects. This is actually really important for this project, or at least it was for me. I don't know where else you can get it. Anyway, it's Clubhouse glitter paint, 500 mils, and it's water-based, which is important. Good for cleanup. They sell it in different colours, so you can get blues and greens and reds and silvers and things like that. So I got the blue and the silver, and I mixed them together to get a base coat. I'll explain that in a minute. And then for the clear coat that I put over the finished product, I used Rust-Oleum 2X Ultra Cover Gloss Clear, and I used 5 cans of this. This was the most expensive part of the whole project. It came to about $75 to $80 Australian. And I used pretty much 1 can per drum, except for the base drum, which used about 1.5 cans. So I used about 5, maybe 6 cans, something like that. Alright, that's important because it locks everything down and protects the finish afterwards. I don't know how durable it is, and I did actually read a few mixed reviews about this when I first got it, or when I first looked into it. So yeah, it worked for me. Can't guarantee that it's going to work for you, but it worked for me. Alright, it's a spray can, it works like spray paint. Alright, then the most important item of the lot. This is holographic glitter, okay? It's technically listed as premium super sparkle glitter, holographic chunky glitter. It's in ocean crush finish, and it's made by the company Artco. Alright. It comes in various size containers. You can buy packets of it, you can buy bottles of it, or jars of it like this, and you can also buy little satchels of it, like I showed you here, okay? So, yeah, if you just want a sample, you can buy sample packets, and you can buy 150 gram containers of it. and this is the Ocean Crush. Now I've only used, on this whole drum kit, I've only used that much of the container, so about, I don't know, we'll say 2/3. So I've still got plenty left if I wanted to use it for more projects. So I got this from a place in Australia called Harry and Wilma. They've got their own website. I don't know much about them. My partner found them when she was looking for art supplies, and yeah, they seem to ship very quickly. I got this in 3 days after I ordered it, which I wasn't expecting it to get it for about a week. And they seem to respond to emails and stuff very quickly. So yeah, you'll need some of that. Alright, in whatever colour you choose. I chose Ocean Crush because I thought it looked cool, and that was the sample packet that I had available. Alright, I think that's about it as far as tools. Pens, pencils, things like that. You might have to crunch some numbers, so you might want a calculator or a calculator app or something to figure out how much paint you need, things like that. Alright, so I'll get into the actual process now. So as far as the process, what I did was I used the spanner, screwdrivers and drum keys to take off all the hardware, all the metal parts. So when I say hardware, I mean anything that's metal. So all the brackets, the lugs, the rims, the drum heads, the legs on the floor toms, the legs on the bass drum here, all that came off. I had to take it all off. All right? Don't just mask over it and paint around it. It doesn't look as good. I've tried it before. Learn from my mistakes. So take it all off the shell. All right, that'll leave you with just the drum shell, okay, with holes in it and the plastic wrap. Now, if you want to know what the plastic wrap originally looked like, it was meant to be sky blue, but it had faded really badly into a horrible green color. Look at the PDF, there's a photo of it on there. All right, so what I did was I used the heat gun to heat up the finish on the drum. Now you've got to be careful when you do this because you want to soften the plastic, not melt it completely. And what will end up happening is the glue will kind of just give way, and it'll happen quite quickly. So the plastic will kind of stretch with the heat, and then it just suddenly gives way. Okay, you don't want to heat the drum to the point where you warp it. You don't want to heat the plastic to the point where it melts completely and starts dripping everywhere. So be careful with it. These things can actually put out a lot of heat. They can set fires to things if they really, if things get too hot. If the plastic drips, it can burn you. All those sorts of things. So be careful with it. Again, do some experimentation, or if you're younger, maybe get your parents to supervise or something like that. All right. So be careful using the heat gun. That's probably a delicate part. All right. Once the plastic wrap is off, you'll probably have a little bit of adhesive, okay, a little bit of glue or tape where the wrap was held on. That's where the sandpaper comes in. So I used the 120 grit to just lightly sand the shell. I wasn't sanding it heavily. I didn't use a machine or anything, or a sanding machine. I just used my hands and just gave it a light sand. And just to smooth things off, and be careful of the bearing edges. The bearing edges of the drum, if I use the snare drum here, are the top diagonal cut and about 1 centimetre below the top of the shell on both sides. You want to be careful of that, because if you damage that, it'll affect the sound of the drum, and you want to get the heads to sit right. And you can't, it's very hard to get them fixed, very expensive. And I don't know first thing about doing it, other than the fact that they use routers and tools like that. It's actually a skill of its own. So be careful of the bearing edges. All right. So you've got the shell, you've got the cover off, you've sanded it lightly, it's looking pretty good. Now, what you want to do is use the masking tape to mask off the bearing edges, okay? And I would cut little squares of it and stuck it over the holes where the lug screws and everything were, or are, just so no paint got into the drum. I also masked off the inside with newspaper. That took a while. Spend time doing it because it just neatens up the project. You don't want spray paint and everything getting on the inside of the drum and all that sort of stuff. It's a pain in the neck to clean out. You've got to resand it all. So yeah, spend some time on with some good quality masking tape and some newspaper masking everything off. All right. Once it's all masked off, then what I did was, and I forgot to mention this in the list of equipment and stuff, I bought, I think, 2 cans of White Knight spray paint primer. Now, you might find something else to use, but I bought blue spray paint, effectively, with a primer component to it. And I sprayed the drums blue. Again, look at the PDF, you'll see what I mean. That gave the drum a blue color. My theory was blue drum for blue glitter. All right, that way it matches and blends in. Once that's dry, and you've got all the drum is completely blue, then I mixed this stuff. Now, the way I mixed it was I didn't like the straight blue glitter paint. So I mixed it 8 parts blue glitter paint, 1 part silver, roughly. Okay, I wasn't an exact measurement. Again, I was kind of making it up as I went. So 8 parts blue, 1 part silver. And I mixed that in this container here. Mix, okay, make it a very thorough mixing job. You want all the silver through the blue. Right? And that gave a very glittery, strangely enough, very iridescent, reflective blue. Almost had a tint of purple to it in certain lights. There's a little bit of it here. It's almost purple in some way. All right. Then I painted that over the top of the blue drum that I've just painted. Now, I will warn you, at this point it looks like a 10-year-old's art project. Okay, it looks really dodgy. All right. Even my partner came out and looked at it and went, "That looks really bad." And I was thinking, yeah, I know. I was actually kind of worried it wasn't going to work. So my theory was, well, in for a penny, in for a pound, why not? Let's just go nuts with the glitter paint. So instead of having 1 coat of this, I actually put 3 coats of this on. And I'm really glad I did, because it lays a nice thick base coat of glitter underneath this. So what you're actually looking at isn't just the holographic glitter, it's actually the glitter paint underneath it as well, and the blue shell. All right. So 3 coats of this, and then comes the holographic glitter once this is dry. And what I did was I took this container and I made a mark, and I experimented with different measurements, and I found that 2 amounts of that, okay, very scientific measurements here, 2 amounts of this into 3 scoops of paint. So what I did was I poured this into that 3 times. I then poured that into this, and then added 2 markings worth, I guess, 2 amounts of that, of the holographic glitter into this container, and then mixed like crazy, and that created kind of like a paste, like a glitter paste. And then from there, I used the 1 inch, about 1.5 inch paintbrush to layer it on. It's almost like cement render, plaster, or using icing, I guess. It's not like regular paint because it's got so much glitter in it by this point. So I just did full length, okay, stretches of brushwork all the way up. And it kind of goes on like icing. It just sort of sticks to the drum. And you'll have to push it around and move it around a bit. And after you've done a small section, you'll start to see the effect almost instantly. It's very reflective, pretty stuff, really. Now this is also the brush I used for the standard, what I call the base coat of glitter. So the 3 coats of that. All right. Now once you've got the drum covered in holographic glitter, and you've let it dry, and you're happy with it, you might want to do more coats than 1. This is only 1 coat of holographic glitter, by the way. I was very happy with 1. I was so happy with it, I didn't want to touch it again. I just thought, nah, that looks good enough. If I do it again, I might wreck it. So I just left it at 1 coat. You might want to try more. All right. So once the holographic glitter is on and dry, I then coated it in the Rust-Oleum clear coat. And what you're looking at now, this is the finished product. Okay, so what you're looking at here is a drum shell that's covered in blue paint, 3 coats of Clubhouse glitter paint, which I've mixed together, 1 coat of holographic glitter or super sparkle glitter, depending on what you want to call it, and then probably 5 coats, roughly, of the Rust-Oleum clear coat. And that brings the drum up to look like this. Again, what it looks like on camera, very different to what I'm seeing in real life. In real life, this thing looks absolutely gorgeous, okay? It's reflecting light like crazy. But on camera, sadly, it just doesn't come out. All right, so that's basically the process. And then after that, I took off all the masking. And this is where things can fall apart really quickly if you get impatient and decide you want to rush this part. You could wreck it very quickly. Using the scalpel, okay, I went around the drum with all the masking and I very delicately took off the masking tape and the newspaper. You could wreck the project very quickly at this point if you just take the masking tape and try and rip it off. Okay, you could end up ripping off a lot of the paint that you've just put on because that paint is over the masking. So you grab the masking tape, rip it, and suddenly it doesn't just come off where the masking tape is, it also rips further down and you take off some of the glitter as well. So be very delicate and very careful taking off the masking. I'd hate for you to get that far, have this really gorgeous looking drum that you're really excited about, and wreck it because you've just got impatient with the masking part. Alright, once the masking's off, then you can obviously clean your hardware and put it back on. Now I had to polish this hardware to put it back on because it was a little bit rusted. It had been sitting in a shed for a long time. It was dirty and dusty. Alright, so that's basically the process. Anything other than that, you can look at the PDF. So what I might do, I don't know if the camera's going to pick this up, but I'll try it anyway. I'm going to pick this up and just turn it around a little bit, and hopefully you'll get a little bit of the light reflections. Can't guarantee that, but I'll give it a shot. It might work. And again, I'll give a little disclaimer. I'm not 100% sure how tough this finish is. I mean, it is clear coat, it's several coats of clear coat, but I can't guarantee that it's super tough like a professional drum finish would be. The other thing I need to let you know is that it is slightly rough to the touch. Not heaps, it's like art paper or canvas, okay? It's just got a little bit of texture to it. It's not dead smooth like a traditional drum finish would be, like you'd get if you bought, say, a Pearl drum kit or a Tama drum kit or a Yamaha drum kit that had that glossy sort of lacquered finish. All right. Now the thing that's caught everybody's attention with this, I think, is the price point that it came in at. It's about $100 and $120. So $15 or thereabouts. These cost about $3 to $5 each, so you know, a few dollars there. This was the expensive part. It was about $17 a can. And I also bought some craft paint to do the rims of the bass drum, so I hand painted those. So that added a little bit. But the whole process, all the other tools and stuff I own, masking tape I had to buy, but the whole thing came in at about $120, $100, somewhere around there, which for a nice glossy glitter finish in holographic glitter, I would have thought that this thing would cost me a couple of $1,000. All right, I think that's about it. Hopefully that helps you out, and yeah, refer to the PDF. And if you've got any questions, I guess you can shoot me an email or a message, and I'll try to answer it as best I can. All right, I hope this helps. I hope your project works as well as mine. If it doesn't, I'm sorry, but again, do some testing first before you try this idea out for yourself. All right, have fun.